Imagine a small people, renowned for their bravery, facing the greatest empire of the ancient world. They didn't just challenge Rome, they humiliated its legions in bloody battles. This is the story of the Batavian Revolt, a rebellion that nearly changed the course of history. In the year 69 after Christ, while Rome was experiencing a period of internal chaos known as the Year of the Four Emperors, the Batavians, a Germanic people from the southern Netherlands, saw an opportunity to free themselves from the Roman yoke. Led by Gaius Julius Civilis, an officer who knew Roman tactics from the inside, they initiated a revolt that shook the foundations of Rome's power in the region. The Batavians were exceptional warriors who possessed a unique skill. They could swim across rivers while wearing full armor, giving them a tremendous tactical advantage in battle. This small tribe managed to destroy 2 entire Roman legions, a feat that sent shockwaves throughout the empire. During this tumultuous year, Rome was distracted by civil war. 4 different emperors claimed the throne within months of each other: Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and eventually Vespasian. This political instability created the perfect storm for Civilis and his warriors to strike. What makes this revolt truly fascinating is how a commander trained by Rome used that very training against his former masters. Civilis had served in the Roman auxiliary forces for 25 years, rising to the rank of prefect. He understood Roman formations, tactics, and, most importantly, their weaknesses. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of the great empires, like this video, subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel and don't miss a single episode of our journey through the ancient world. But who exactly were these Batavians who dared to challenge Rome? They were a Germanic tribe that settled in the Rhine Delta region in what is now the southern Netherlands. These weren't just any warriors. They were renowned throughout the ancient world for their exceptional fighting skills and horsemanship. The Batavians lived on a large island formed by the Rhine, Waal, and Meuse rivers, giving them a natural fortress that was difficult for enemies to penetrate. This watery homeland shaped their culture and their remarkable abilities as warriors. For decades, the Batavians had been loyal allies of Rome. Unlike many conquered peoples, they enjoyed a special status within the empire. Instead of paying heavy taxes in gold or grain, they paid their tribute in blood, providing some of the finest soldiers for Rome's auxiliary forces. Batavian cavalry units were among the most elite fighters in the entire Roman military, stationed as far away as Britain and along the Danube frontier. Did you know that the Batavians possessed a unique skill that made them legendary among Roman commanders? They could swim across rivers while wearing full armor and carrying weapons. Roman writers described with awe how Batavian warriors would form special swimming units that could cross the Rhine or other waterways without bridges or boats, taking enemies completely by surprise. This ability gave them a tremendous tactical advantage in battles near rivers like the Rhine, where other troops would be forced to find crossing points or build bridges. But this alliance with Rome came at a heavy price. The recruitment demands grew increasingly burdensome, with Rome taking more and more young men from Batavian villages. Families were torn apart as sons were sent to fight in distant lands. And as the years passed, Roman officials began treating the Batavians with contempt, forgetting the respect their warrior culture deserved. The final straw came when corrupt Roman officers began personally profiting from the recruitment system. They would deliberately select the strongest and youngest men, not for military service, but to be sold into slavery or prostitution. The proud Batavian people, who had willingly fought alongside Romans for generations, found themselves increasingly humiliated and exploited. As tensions grew, whispers of rebellion began spreading through the Batavian homeland. The stage was set for an uprising that would shake Rome to its foundations. At the heart of the Batavian Revolt stood an extraordinary man, Gaius Julius Civilis. This was no ordinary tribal leader emerging from obscurity. Civilis was a Batavian prince by birth, a Roman commander by training, and a revolutionary by circumstance. His very name tells a fascinating story. Gaius Julius was a Roman citizen name, granted to him when his family received Roman citizenship, likely during the time of Julius Caesar or Augustus. This practice was common for tribal leaders who allied with Rome, a way of binding them to the empire through honor and privilege. But he never forgot his Batavian identity, keeping his tribal name Civilis alongside his Roman one. For 25 years, Civilis served with distinction in the Roman auxiliary forces. He rose through the ranks to become a prefect, a high-ranking officer commanding hundreds of men. During his service, he learned everything about Roman military tactics, how legions formed battle lines, how they responded to ambushes, their strengths in open combat, and most importantly, their weaknesses in difficult terrain. But Civilis's relationship with Rome soured dramatically. The Roman historian Tacitus tells us that he was falsely accused of treason during the reign of Emperor Nero. In chains, he was sent to Rome itself to face judgment. Though eventually acquitted by the Emperor Galba, this humiliation left deep scars. His brother wasn't so fortunate, executed by the Romans on similar dubious charges. What made Civilis truly dangerous to Rome was his unique position. He understood both worlds perfectly. To the Romans, he appeared as a sophisticated Romanized officer. To his fellow Batavians, he remained a true son of their people, a prince of royal blood who understood their grievances. When the year of the 4 emperors threw Rome into chaos, Civilis saw his opportunity. He was a master of deception and political maneuvering. At first, he claimed to be supporting Vespasian's bid for the imperial throne, presenting his uprising as merely opposing the Emperor Vitellius. This clever strategy allowed him to gather allies who might otherwise have hesitated to join an anti-Roman rebellion. But Civilis had a deeper plan. As Roman cohesion crumbled, he revealed his true ambition, nothing less than the liberation of his people and the creation of an independent Batavian state. He was a brilliant orator who could inspire both his countrymen and neighboring tribes with visions of freedom from Roman oppression. What's remarkable is how Civilis combined traditional Germanic battle tactics with sophisticated Roman military strategy. He knew when to fight in the Roman style, with disciplined formations and standard tactics, and when to employ the wild, fearsome charges that Germanic warriors were famous for. This hybrid approach repeatedly caught Roman commanders off guard, leading to a series of stunning victories that sent shockwaves throughout the empire. The year 69 after Christ would become one of the most humiliating periods in Roman military history. As civil war raged within the empire, the Batavians launched their uprising with devastating effect. What followed was a series of battles that shocked Rome to its core. Civilis began his rebellion with a brilliant stratagem. He invited the Roman officers stationed in Batavian territory to a lavish banquet, supposedly to honor their alliance. But as the wine flowed freely and the Romans became intoxicated, Civilis gave a signal. His warriors, who had been posing as servants, drew hidden weapons and slaughtered the Roman command structure in one brutal night. With the local Roman leadership eliminated, Civilis moved quickly. He gathered 8 Batavian cohorts that had been recalled from Britain and turned them against their former masters. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were elite troops who knew Roman tactics intimately. The first major confrontation occurred when the Roman governor Flaccus sent a punitive force to crush what he considered a minor tribal disturbance. Led by a commander named Aquilius, these Romans marched confidently into Batavian territory, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared ambush. Civilis had hidden his warriors in the dense forests along the march route. When the Romans were at their most vulnerable, the Batavians attacked from all sides. Aquilius and his men were completely overwhelmed. Few Romans survived to bring news of the disaster back to their commanders. But the most stunning victory came at the Battle of Castra Vetera. This was a major Roman fortress near modern-day Xanten in Germany, garrisoned by the 5th and 15th legions, approximately 10,000 elite Roman troops behind strong walls. Rather than avoiding this formidable stronghold, Civilis made the bold decision to besiege it. The siege of Castra Vetera became a masterclass in psychological warfare. For weeks, the Batavians harassed the Romans with constant raids and attacks, never allowing them to rest. They used their superior knowledge of the local terrain to cut off supply lines and prevent reinforcements from reaching the beleaguered garrison. Inside the fortress, conditions deteriorated rapidly. Food ran short, and diseases spread among the crowded troops. Morale plummeted as the legionaries realized no help was coming. When Roman relief forces did attempt to break through, they were ambushed and destroyed by Civilis's men. After months of siege, the unthinkable happened. The commander of the two legions, Munius Lupercus, was forced to negotiate surrender terms, something almost unheard of in Roman military history. The Batavians promised safe passage if the Romans abandoned the fortress and all their equipment. But when the legionaries marched out, Civilis's allies, the Germani tribe, fell upon them in a brutal massacre against Civilis's orders. Over 10,000 Roman soldiers were killed or captured in this disaster. The defeat sent shockwaves through the empire. 2 entire legions, not just defeated, but destroyed. Their eagle standards, sacred symbols of Roman power, were captured by the rebels. Nothing could have been more humiliating for Rome, whose military superiority was central to its imperial identity. So did you know that the Batavians were exceptional swimmers who could cross rivers in full armor? That's just one of the fascinating aspects of this remarkable people. If you're enjoying this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel for more incredible stories from history. And tell us in the comments, do you think the Batavians could have defeated Rome if they had received more support from other tribes? Rome's initial response to the Batavian Revolt was hampered by the civil war raging within the empire. But once Vespasian secured the imperial throne in late 69 after Christ, everything changed. The new emperor immediately recognized the existential threat posed by Civilis and his allies. If the Batavian rebellion succeeded, it could inspire similar uprisings throughout the empire's frontiers. Vespasian knew exactly who to send to crush this dangerous revolt. His relative and trusted general, Quintus Petilius Cerialis. This was no ordinary commander. Cerialis had already proven himself in the brutal suppression of Boudicca's rebellion in Britain years earlier. He was a battle-hardened veteran who combined tactical brilliance with merciless efficiency. In the spring of 70 after Christ, Cerialis marched north with an overwhelming force. 8 full legions, nearly 50,000 men, advanced toward Batavian territory. This was one of the largest military expeditions Rome had ever mounted against a single tribe, a testament to how seriously they now took the Batavian threat. As Cerialis approached, Civilis faced a growing problem. His early successes had relied heavily on surprise and the chaos of Rome's civil war, but now he faced a united empire with seemingly limitless resources. Worse still, many of his allies began to waver. The Treveri and Lingones, Gallic tribes that had joined his cause, started to reconsider their position as the massive Roman army drew near. The first major clash came at Augusta Treverorum, modern-day Trier in Germany. Here, Cerialis decisively defeated the Treveri, one of Civilis's most important allies. The Roman commander showed brilliant tactical flexibility, turning what initially looked like a defeat into a stunning victory by personally leading a cavalry charge that broke the rebel lines. With the Treveri defeated, Cerialis turned his full attention to the Batavians. Unlike previous Roman commanders who had underestimated Civilis, Cerialis studied his opponent carefully. He avoided the forest ambushes that had destroyed earlier Roman forces and instead forced the Batavians to fight on open ground where Roman discipline and numbers could prevail. In a series of bloody battles along the Rhine, Cerealis gradually pushed Civilis back. The Roman general employed a scorched earth policy, destroying crops and villages to deny the rebels supplies and shelter. This brutal strategy placed immense pressure on the Batavian population, who began to question whether continued resistance was worth such suffering. The decisive moment came at a battle near the modern Dutch town of Nijmegen. Here, Civilis attempted a daring assault on the Roman camp, hoping to replicate his earlier successes. But Cerealis had anticipated this move and set a trap of his own. As the Batavians charged, hidden Roman units emerged from concealed positions, catching the rebels in a deadly crossfire. What followed was a crushing defeat for the Batavians. Thousands were killed, and their remaining forces were scattered. Civilis himself barely escaped with his life, swimming across the Rhine to safety, ironically using the very skill that had made his people famous as warriors. With his army in tatters and his allies defeated, Civilis finally recognized that continued resistance was futile. He requested peace talks with Cerealis. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, the two commanders met on a bridge over the Rhine River that had been deliberately broken in the middle. Standing on opposite sides of the broken span, they negotiated terms. The conditions imposed on the Batavians were harsh. They were forced to swear a new oath of loyalty to Rome, pay heavy tribute, and accept the permanent stationing of the 10th Legion in their territory as an occupying force. Most humiliating of all, their prized exemption from regular taxation was revoked, placing them on the same level as ordinary conquered peoples. As for Civilis himself, his fate remains one of history's mysteries. Tacitus's account of the revolt ends abruptly during the peace negotiations. Some historians believe he was pardoned in exchange for the Batavians' renewed loyalty, while others suspect he was executed once the rebellion was fully suppressed. Either way, his remarkable campaign against the world's greatest empire had come to an end. Though ultimately defeated, the Batavian revolt left an indelible mark on history that resonates even to this day. In the immediate aftermath, Rome was forced to reconsider how it treated its allies and subject peoples throughout the empire. The rebellion demonstrated that even the mightiest empire could be vulnerable when it abused those it relied upon for security. For the Batavians themselves, the consequences were mixed. They suffered greatly in the short term, losing their privileged status and facing occupation by the 10th Legion. Yet surprisingly, within a generation, they had regained much of their standing in the Roman world. The empire still needed their exceptional cavalry and swimming skills, and Batavian units once again became elite forces in the Roman military. Their unique abilities were simply too valuable to ignore. What's particularly fascinating is how the revolt changed Rome's military strategy along its northern frontier. After crushing the rebellion, the Romans embarked on a massive construction project, building permanent stone fortresses all along the Rhine. The remains of these fortifications can still be seen today in cities like Nijmegen in the Netherlands. Every time the Romans looked at these walls, they were reminded of how close they had come to losing control of this vital region. The rebellion also had profound cultural impacts. Roman writers like Tacitus used the story of Civilis to critique their own society, often portraying the Batavians as noble savages whose simple virtue contrasted with Roman decadence. In his work Histories, Tacitus presents Civilis as a complex figure, neither wholly villain nor hero, whose grievances against Rome had legitimate foundations. This nuanced portrayal was unusual in Roman literature, which typically depicted rebels as barbaric or irrational. Perhaps the most significant legacy of the Batavian revolt was its inspiration for future resistance against imperial power. Throughout history, other peoples facing overwhelming odds have drawn courage from the example of Civilis and his warriors. During the Dutch revolt against Spanish rule in the 16th century, the rebels explicitly compared themselves to their Batavian ancestors. The Dutch painter Rembrandt even created a masterpiece titled The Conspiracy of Claudius Civilis, depicting the moment when the Batavian leaders swore their oath to resist Rome. In the modern Netherlands, the Batavians have become an important part of national identity and historical consciousness. Archaeological excavations at sites like Nijmegen continue to uncover evidence of this dramatic period, bringing the ancient conflict to life for new generations. Museums throughout the country proudly display Batavian artifacts, and historical reenactors keep their memory alive through public demonstrations of their distinctive fighting techniques. What makes the story of the Batavian Revolt so enduring is its timeless themes. It's a tale of resistance against overwhelming odds, of a small people fighting for their freedom and dignity. It reminds us that even the most powerful empires have their vulnerabilities, and that the human spirit of independence can never truly be conquered. Most remarkably, we know about this revolt primarily through Roman sources, the very empire that suppressed it. Even Roman historians couldn't help but admire the courage and tactical brilliance of Civilis and his warriors. In preserving the story of their enemies, they inadvertently ensured that the legacy of the Batavian Revolt would inspire freedom fighters for centuries to come. So next time you hear someone say that resistance is futile against a superior power, remember the Batavians. Their ultimate defeat does nothing to diminish the audacity of their achievement. For a brief, shining moment, they brought the mightiest empire the world had ever known to its knees. The Batavian Revolt stands as one of history's most captivating chapters, a moment when a small but courageous people dared to challenge the greatest empire the ancient world had ever known. For a brief, extraordinary time, the mighty Roman war machine faltered against the determination and tactical brilliance of Civilis and his warriors. Though ultimately defeated, the Batavians achieved something remarkable. They proved that even the most powerful empire had vulnerabilities, that courage, knowledge, and determination could shake the foundations of Roman power. In their resistance, we see echoes of a timeless human story, the yearning for freedom and the willingness to fight against overwhelming odds to secure it. I've often wondered what might have happened if the Batavians had succeeded in their revolt. Would a chain reaction of rebellions have spread throughout the empire's frontiers? Could Rome's northern boundaries have collapsed entirely? Perhaps a confederation of Germanic tribes might have emerged centuries before the great migrations that eventually did help bring down the Western Roman Empire. The course of European history might have been dramatically altered. But perhaps the true value of studying revolts like this isn't in imagining alternative outcomes. It's in understanding the complex relationship between power and resistance throughout human history. The Batavian Revolt reminds us that empires are not just built through conquest, but must be maintained through the delicate balance of force and legitimacy. When that balance fails, even the mightiest can be brought to the brink. What's your take? What do you think would have happened if the Batavians had managed to secure their independence from Rome? Would the course of history have been fundamentally altered? Or would Rome's overwhelming resources have eventually reasserted control regardless? The beauty of history lies in these questions that challenge us to think deeply about cause and effect, about power and resistance, about the roads taken and not taken. If you enjoyed this journey through one of ancient history's most dramatic rebellions, please leave a like, share this video with friends who appreciate history, and subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel. By subscribing, you'll join us for more explorations of fascinating civilizations, epic battles, and the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos on other forgotten rebellions that challenge the ancient world's greatest powers. Until next time, remember that history isn't just about the victors. It's about all those who dared to change their world, whether they succeeded or not. See you in our next historical adventure.